A. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston was first published in 1937. It's the second and most celebrated of her 4 novels, though she also wrote poetry, plays, short stories, and nonfiction. Hurston sets much of this story in her hometown of Eatonville, Florida, and her background in anthropology, along with her interest in folklore and its oral tradition, are apparent in the narrative. The book begins by introducing Janie Mae Crawford, who's in her 40s and has just returned to town. She's seemingly unfazed by the gossip that swirls around her, as her neighbors wonder where she's been for the last year and a half. In private, she looks to share her journey with her closest friend, and from this framing device, we learn her whole story. She was raised by her grandmother, and she takes her listener chronologically through her 3 marriages, as she becomes Janie Killicks, Janie Starks, and finally, Janie Woods. The narrator is a patient and resilient individual, and her struggles through her first 2 marriages make the eventual strength and independence she finds in her 3rd marriage all the more satisfying. There is a heroism in the character's ability to endure. Despite tragedy and difficult circumstances in her life, Janie is able to eventually secure her own happiness. The writing in this novel is poetic, both in terms of the beautiful narration and the colloquial rhythms of the dialogue. Though it wasn't highly successful upon its initial release, with the novel being forgotten for some time, in the last 40 to 50 years, Their Eyes Were Watching God has finally been recognized for what it always was, a true American masterpiece. The first time I read this novel, it was many years ago from this 50th anniversary trade paperback edition from the University of Illinois Press. It has a wonderful cover design, with the author's name in green and the title below that. We see a pear tree, an important symbol in the book, with a home behind it. I love the variety of line weights used in this illustration. Inside, there's a foreword by Shirley Ann Williams. She discusses how she found the work of Zora Hurston and how the novel's themes develop, with substantial plot summary that contains quite a few spoilers in these 11 pages. Then we get the text itself. The font size is large and nicely spaced, but the printing has issues at times and feels dated. When the Folio Society announced that it would be releasing a version of the novel, I knew I could count on a massive improvement in the printing quality and was eager to see what else their illustrated hardcover copy of the novel had in store. So let's do this. And here we have Their Eyes Were Watching God from the Folio Society. This version was released in 2022. It's presented in a fantastic illustrated paper slipcase wrapped in decorative diamond designs. Some of the diamonds have lines and swirls, while others feature images: a dog, a couple, doves, hands, plants, and a pear. The book itself is bound in a textured paper that reminds me of but isn't quite cloth. The cover image is done in the same simplified bold print style as the slipcase art, featuring a female silhouette with organic forms in green and red. In terms of recognizable shapes, there's a pitcher in yellow and a bird in silver. On my own copy, there is some bubbling on the printing. Perhaps it didn't get enough heat in the application process, but I believe these streaks in the cream color are deliberate, as they match the painted style of some of the interior artwork. The printing around the vase and the bird isn't quite as crisp as it should be and seems to flake off around the edges. I might go in here carefully with a knife later and clean it up. On the spine we see a smaller bird image recessed in silver, with the title recessed in yellow. The author name is printed flush in blue, and the publisher logo is recessed in silver. There appears to be wear here on the yellow of the title, but the design on the title page reveals that this wear effect is deliberate. Here we've got both birds in the same size as they appear on the cover and spine, and the binding for the book is appropriately finished with red and green bands. When we open the novel, we're met by plain red end papers in a medium stock. The book is printed on Abbey wove paper, Folio's standard paper stock for the text block, which is smooth, acid-free, and comes in at a warm cream white color. If we bring back the Illini edition for a brief side-by-side, we can see that the Folio Society version is only marginally bigger, with an extra 2 centimeters in the height and no substantial difference in the width. The font size is smaller in the Folio version, but there are more lines per page and a crisper and more consistent printing quality throughout. I've read the book from both editions and noted an improvement when it came to the readability of the Folio edition due to the higher quality paper, which provides consistent contrast, making it easy on the eyes. The introduction is by author Zadie Smith. She begins by sharing her own initial reluctance to read Their Eyes Were Watching God in her youth, and she uses a number of quotes to illustrate the value she discovered in it once she finally decided to give it a try. Smith addresses some of the criticism of the novel and convincingly reframes it as a universal rather than an exotic work of fiction, but swings back around to the personal towards the end of her 15 pages as she speaks to the soulfulness of the text. This fantastic introduction is from 2007 and is not exclusive to the Folio version, having previously appeared elsewhere, including Zadie Smith's own Changing My Mind, Occasional Essays. The interior artwork, like the cover, is by Diana Ijayata, and it is exclusive to this edition. She's an artist who works in textiles and has illustrated for magazines, as well as her own books. Her work has elements that appear painted, but also look like silkscreen prints at times, with vibrant colors and bold, blocked shapes. The artwork here is presented on thick, smooth, matte paper, and the images all land within 5 pages of the text they correspond to, usually on the page right next to the text, which is something I really appreciate when it comes to the design of an illustrated novel. Let's take a detailed look at that artwork now. The first illustration is one of the best. It's only 2 color, but the design is lyrical and elegant. We have a silhouette face here, representing Janie Crawford as a young woman. She lies beneath the pear tree where she has a powerful epiphany, a sexual awakening of sorts. There's such a wonderful variety of foliage represented, from the broad shapes of these plants to the intricate details we see here. The second illustration is of Nanny embracing her granddaughter. Both women are strong silhouette shapes, with Janie in bare feet and Nanny in boots. The older woman comforts the youth, who is in agony at having to marry a man she doesn't love. The empty and full vases are certainly symbolic here, while the primary colors and more of that scratchy printing technique help to establish an elemental tone for this piece. The third image depicts a scene in Eatonville, Florida, when Joe Stark, the newly elected mayor of the all-black town, purchases the first streetlight. The whole town shows up for the ceremony, eager to witness the event as the lamp is lit for the first time. The lamp itself is at the top of this image, and all around are the multicolored silhouettes meant to represent the crowd who look up at the light in the night sky with awe and wonder. The fourth image is from a humorous scene where the town of Eatonville mourns the loss of a beloved mule. Mayor Starks purchased the 23-year-old overworked mule from its cruel owner and freed the animal, much to the joy of the citizens. The town comes together to feed the animal and it roams around getting into adventures. Eventually the mule dies and is found with all 4 feet up in the air. Those who can take the day off from work and head out to the swamp for the ceremony for their most beloved citizen. They playfully joke about mule heaven, mule angels, and miles of pasture. People hold their hats in respect as some sing and pray for the mule. The layers and colors work really well here. The next illustration is a depiction of Janie embracing Virgil Tea Cake Woods, her much younger husband. The colors work to emphasize the lyrical design, with Janie's blue arm and the negative space taking the shape of her other arm. Her face and hair in vibrant yellow stand out against the black silhouette for Tea Cake as she rests her head on his shoulder, comforted from her work as he returns to her after a long, unannounced absence from home. The sixth image is from when Janie and Tea Cake move to the Everglades for the season to plant and pick beans. Their house becomes a hub for their fellow workers who come over at night to hear Tea Cake play music on the steps. They come to talk and tell stories and laugh. The colorful profile silhouettes recall this previous image, but there's more joy and energy in this composition. The seventh and final image is also presented in a primary color scheme and is of a scene near the end of the novel during a hurricane. Janie has fallen into the water and grabs onto a passing cow. A mad dog that's also riding on the cow's back lashes out at her before Tea Cake ultimately saves her. The winds of the storm are suggested here, with the dog's fierce presence as the dominant element in this image. These superimposed faces are meant to represent Janie and Tea Cake, who both witness the terror of the dog from different perspectives. I am quite pleased with this edition of Their Eyes Were Watching God. Beyond the minor issues with the cover that are likely just unique to my own copy, and the fact that the introduction is reused from elsewhere here, this version has everything else I'm looking for in an upgrade. A printed slipcase, a beautiful and cohesive design, amazing stylized illustrations, and a quality build. With the printing issues that my old trade paperback edition suffered from, I'm happy moving it to the box of doom, because now I have this lovely copy to take its place on my bookshelf. As always, thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for future videos. When it comes to the stories you love, it's always worth upgrading your books.